Is fasting kind of like going to the dentist? Something we know we should do, don't really want to do, and so we kind of avoid doing it. James, let me ask you, why do we fast?
Well, fasting increases our hunger and our desperation for God. My experience is, I'm just thinking back to 2007.
Yeah.
I had a really life-changing encounter with God in the process of fasting, actually. And it was through, the call, Luengo, an amazing man of God, and he'd called a 40-day fast that was building up to 2007, 7th of July 2007. And I heard about this through The Ramp, which is another ministry in America that we love and just support so much. And I heard about this and I thought I'd never really been on a fast that long, but I really felt stirred to really connect with this. So I really felt like I should go on a Daniel fast. Now, in case you wonder what Daniel fast is, basically just vegetables. You read the book of Daniel, you have an idea of what that looks like. No meats, no sweets, it's just vegetables and water. And so there are different variations to that. But anyway, I decided that was what was appropriate for me to go on. Now, during that season of fasting, I remember so much hunger being stirred in my heart for God, like I'd never known before. I mean, I would wake up praying. I remember one of my roommates, at the time was saying to me that I was crying out to God for revival in my sleep.
Wow.
Like I was praying in my sleep and I didn't even know that was good. It was like so much was stirred in my heart. Those 40 days changed my whole life.
Wow.
So I really believe fasting stirs up such hunger for God. In the natural, hunger is a sign of health.
Yeah.
When you're hungry, it shows that you've got appetite and it's good. But many people have lost their spiritual appetite, and perhaps you need to fast to get hungry.
That's good. That's really good. I think what I like about that is one of the interesting times in the New Testament when the Bible talks about fasting, John's disciples and the Pharisees, I believe, come to Jesus and they say, why are your disciples fasting? And he says, while the bridegroom is with them, they're not going to fast. But there'll be a time when I'm not with them, indicating that it's at that time that they'll begin to fast. And so what I get from that is that fasting is a declaration of my homesickness.
Wow.
It's a declaration of my desperation for his divine power and reality in my life. And it's what's powerful about declarations. It's not only declaring it, it's actually increasing it. It's the stirring up. In the same way, if you keep telling someone you love them, your feelings will come in line with your declaration. In the same way, when you fast before God and you declare you're doing it out of a desperation for more of him, as you declare it in your words and your actions, you actually get even more desperate, even more hungry. It will stir you up.
Absolutely. I think it's so important because we just need to always live in that place of a holy desperation. And it's kind of like the feeling of physical hunger almost reminds me of my dependence and my need for God. So when I'm feeling weak in my body, like, I'm finding this so hard, then I'm reminded of how much I really, really, really do need God. So it's kind of like just triggers me to focus on God. I use it as a trigger as opposed to as an excuse that, oh God, I hate this, I don't want to do this ever again.
Yeah. And Jesus says in the Beatitudes, he said, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. What's righteousness? Right standing with God. Intimate standing with God. What's the answer to that? Will they get a fiver? Will they get a pat on the back? No.
They will be filled.
They will be filled.
Yeah.
Blessed are you when you hunger, when you thirst, when you stir up those hungering, when you stir up those thirsting. The result, you get filled.
Yeah.
When you seek God, he will let you find him.
Amen. I believe that. And it's also like when we fast, I think, as well as declaring our desperation, our hunger for God, we also create space for God to come in, because, we spend a lot of time eating, thinking about food, and making food.
It's true.
If we cut all that time out, we probably will have some time to kind of like just go, okay, well, I've got some space now. Yeah, but there's more to it than that. But I think fasting creates space for God. We say, okay, God, we're clear. Because many of us pray this all the time. In fact, we sing it all the time. God, I want more of you. God, I want more of you. We're saying all these things, but our lives aren't showing it. It's like we're saying all our words, but our lives are saying nothing. Our time is filled up with all kinds of business, entertainment, distractions, and everything else, and we just have a little time for God in the morning or in the evening, 5 minutes here and there. But when we fast, we're declaring our need for God, but also we create space for Him to come into.
You know what? That reminds me of a parable when Jesus said to Jesus talked about with two sons, and the father said to them, do this. One said, yes, I'll do it, and the other son said, no, I won't. But the son that said he won't actually did it. What that tells me is that our actions are more powerful than our words. Words are powerful.
Wow, that's true.
But actually our acts of obedience, our acts in this case of declaration of our dependence and desire for God, that act is a fasting. Not just saying, oh God, yeah, I want you today, that's great, let's move on. But actually I think God smells the sacrifice of our fasting, and He moves towards it. And as you said, it creates space. Hunger in our stomachs is when they're empty. And you know what? Anyone on a budget will tell you the number one time you don't go shopping is when you're hungry. Because if you go to Tesco's when you're hungry, you're throwing all sorts of things in. I've done it, I'm hungry. So I want that, I want that, I want that. Because of hunger, you're desiring, you're pulling in. And this is amazing. You're willing to pay more when you're more hungry.
And you know, recently I have been praying this prayer, saying, God, I don't want to just say I'm hungry for you. I don't want to just say, God, I want more of you. I want my life to speak it out. Because I think you said it, you know, words are cheap. It's easy to say things. It's easy to sing a worship song and not really want to live it out, you know? So I think there's something very important about us letting our lives shout out our need, desperation, and desire for God. And I think fasting is one of those things that enable us to lock into that idea, really.
And I think what it does as well is it gives you a recognition of your spiritual poverty, of your dependence, and of your need. Just as when I fast, I realize I need food. This is what it's like to be hungry. This is what it's like to not have food in my belly. I recognize my spiritual poverty.
When I fast, I appreciate food more.
It's so true. I went on a relatively long fast once, and I would take communion. I did not know those little Anglican communion wafers would taste so good. I'm like, I feel all the taste for the first time. It's amazing because it's important. You become sensitive when you're hungry. You become sensitive.
And the same is true spiritually, actually. When you fast, what happens is your spiritual senses are heightened. What I find, fasting really helps you to be more sensitive in the spirit, and you get sharper, and you're more sensitive to what God's saying.
You know what it's like? The Bible actually says that the spirit is like the wind, and those that are of the spirit, they sense the wind. Have you ever kind of like licked your finger and you put it up to see which way the wind's blowing?
I've never tried that before.
What that water does on your finger is it makes your finger more sensitive. Fasting is like licking your finger to put it up.
Do you actually do that?
Yeah. Have you never done it?
No.
Well, you're learning all sorts of lessons on the program today. But that's what it does. It sensitizes you. So just in that spirit, you know, it might be God being like, don't go that way. Don't get involved with that thing. Or you might just feel, sometimes I fasted and I can literally feel like a hum of God's presence.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and sometimes when you're in that zone, you're like, why would I ever not do this? Like, I'm never going to eat again in my whole life. That's probably why we're probably going skinny.
I was just thinking that.
Well, we've asked, why do we fast? And really the answer is fasting increases our hunger for God. It's a physical, obedient act of declaring our desperation for God. And not only is it a declaration that God appreciates, it increases the desperation. So we'd love to encourage you, why not fast this week? Increase your hunger, increase your desperation for God. Thanks so much for being with us today. We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories of encountering God in fasting. And you know what? Why not join the Prayer Storm movement by sharing this video and subscribing to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with the latest Prayer Storm TV.